Hello Mustangs, today is April 28th. I can't believe that April is almost over. Just think, we only have 7.5 weeks of school left. 8th graders, if you have not registered for high school, you have until April 30th in order to get priority for your classes, so don't forget to register. Last week's riddle's answer is a lid. This week's riddle is, what can run but cannot walk? Tune in next week for the answer.
National Administrative Professionals Day, also known as Secretary's Day or Admin Day, recognizes the professionals who keep an office running smoothly every day. We want to recognize our own Mrs. Predato and Mrs. Bothern for their work here at Thurgood Marshall. Next time you go by the office, say hello and thank them for all they do for the staff and students.
The Rose That Grew from Concrete by Tupac Shakur. Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law is wrong. It learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else ever cared. Great Poetry Reading Day is observed on April 28, 2021. It celebrates great poetry and the great poets who write them.
A couple of weeks ago, we announced the Young American Poetry Digest competition. One of our very own student poets, Isabel Mendez, won. Her poetry will be published in the 2021 edition of Young American Poetry Digest. Congratulations, Isabel. Could you share one of your poems with us?
Yeah, so one of my poems is called Hard Times. The times have been hard, it's okay, we'll get through it together like we do every day. It will get better, it always does, we just have to wait it out, it will be okay.
Thank you, Isabel. We can't wait to see your poetry in the book, which will be in our library in October.
And don't forget, the informational parent meeting for Iceland is tomorrow night, Thursday night at 6:30 on Zoom, and the code is on the website.
Marshall is having a Mother's Day plant sale right here at our own school from May 3rd to May 7th. Let's check it out. Like basil, kale, spider plants, tomatoes, lupin, broccoli, and strawberries, and even more. They're perfect starters for your own garden. They're only $2 to $4.
What if the plant sales fun? Well, first of all, adding more plants to our planet is always a good thing. Second, our plant sales will go fund students going out into the outdoors and watershed restoration.
So on May 3rd to May 7th between 3:20 and 4:30, but not on Wednesdays, just walk around the back of our school to the school garden and purchase however many plants you want. Plant sales are first come, first served, except teachers who can pre-order with Miss McCollum.
April 22nd is Earth Day. This marks the 51st anniversary of Earth Day. Earth Day was founded in 1970 as a day of education about environmental issues.
The first day of Earth Day was effective at raising awareness about environmental issues and transforming the public attitudes. During the 1970s, a number of important pieces of environmental legislation were passed. Among the Clean Air Act, the Water Quality Improvement Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Toxic Substances Control Act, and the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act.
Here's a few ideas on what you can do beyond Earth Day that help out our planet Earth on a daily basis.
Make signs for school and at home. Sometimes you just need a little reminder to help us change our habits. Signs like turning off lights when we leave a room, turn off the water faucet while you brush your teeth and not let it run, keep your thermostat down in your house, about 70 degrees.
Number 2, plant a native plant or tree.
When hiking, stay on the trails. Trailblazing off-trail destroys vital undergrowth that could potentially spread non-native invasive species into our ecosystems.
Number 4, pick up trash around your school or neighborhood. Turn off outdoor lights when you're done using them. Light pollution makes it hard to see the beautiful night sky.
Make a commitment and take action.
Hi Lila, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you go to school and what are some of your passions?
All right, thank you, Ravian. My name is Layla. I'm a junior at Ridge High School, and my passions include racial equity and equality, climate change, and I like to focus a lot of my activism on education and thinking about how racism in the education system harms students of color.
Can you tell us a bit about environmental racial justice and intersectionality?
Yes, thank you, Clementine. Intersectionality and racial justice and environmental justice are still fairly new terms to me, but the way that I see intersectionality is understanding how injustices in marginalized communities and communities of color and injustices in the environment are intertwined and connected. And that kind of ties in with environmental justice. When we think about environmental justice, it's making sure that when we're enforcing and creating laws and policies for the environment, that we're considering and including people of color and how they're impacted by the environment, and how we want to make sure that we're creating a safe space in the environment for them.
How did you get involved in activism, and what project have you or are you working on?
Thank you, Nani. Good question. Activism. My first step into activism was a climate strike in 2019, September 2019, the start of my sophomore year. And ever since then, it's been a journey for me because I've been trying to figure out what activism means to me, and I'm trying to identify my specific role as an activist. But I would say that project-wise, right now I'm ASU, the Black Student Union at River Ridge, and a lot of our projects are focused on the community and the education system. So right now we're working with Washington State Ethnic Studies Advisory Committee, and we are trying to create and approve a framework that would put ethnic studies in schools in Washington. And ethnic studies is kind of having the student be the teacher and the teacher be the student, and making sure that we are including all perspectives in education, in all parts of our education. So we're working on that, and Stay Woke Conference. A few other BSU members and some other community students and youth are going to be speaking, and I'm really excited about that. And then another one of our big projects is working with Hockey Farmers Collective, which is a Black and Brown farming collective founded by Mercy and Elisa McGee. And their focus is giving the earth back to people of color, making sure that people of color know how to farm and know how to use foods, and making sure that they have access to nutritional foods. So we're working with them to create gardens on campus that would allow students of color to have access to nutritional food and give all students an opportunity to connect with the earth through farming. So those are some of my big projects right now.
What has helped you most as you fight climate change?
A big part of why I'm still fighting climate change today is my AVID class. I've been in that class since 9th grade, and I'll be with them until next year, my senior year. And my AVID teacher, he pushes me to bring topics into the class, and the class is very supportive, even if they don't always want to, even if the project isn't always super exciting, they're very enthusiastic about it, which I appreciate. So they've been a very big part of fighting climate change. And I would say social media too. It has its downfalls, but I appreciate the resources that you can find on social media about climate change and environmental racism. And it's also been helpful in spreading awareness, getting more people involved. And there are a lot of local clubs. There's a club in the Olympia High School and the Capitol High School. Those are two that I know of. And they're their presidents and their members have supported me in trying to create a club, which is not really going as I thought it would because of COVID, but they've been very supportive and they've provided a lot of information, which I appreciate. So I would say social media and community have been a big part of my fight.
What are ways we can be involved in environment racial justice as individuals and as our school community?
That's a good question. I would say one of the main things that we can all do is reach out and connect to the indigenous community, indigenous tribes in our locally, because they've been saying the same things that I'm saying for forever, and they've cared for this planet since time immemorial, and it's important that we reach out to them and we connect with them because they have a lot of struggles with environmental racism that aren't apparent all the time, and their voices deserve to be a big part of our fight for climate change because this is originally their land, and we want to make sure that we take care of it and we take care of them and we listen to them as we fight. Another thing is buying less clothes from try and buy secondhand. I like Target and they have a lot of cute clothes, but they're not very sustainable and they don't have, they're not super environmentally conscious in how they're producing clothes and how they're getting rid of the clothes that they don't sell. So thrifting when you can is important. And sometimes thrifted clothes can be a little more expensive. So just all around trying to buy less. And when you're thinking about hygiene products, thinking about naturally sourced and ethical ingredients is important. Shopping locally when it comes to food. And I would say reach out to clubs and organizations that are trying to address climate change and the environment and environmental justice because they do need help and they need support. And getting involved with them is a great opportunity to connect with their vision, but also kind of get involved yourself.
Okay, so what are ways you've been able to keep things moving and keep things fresh and make sure that you have new ideas, momentum, and make change and persevere through rougher times?
I would say first things first is taking care of your mental health and your physical health, taking care of you first. That's for me when things get rough and when there's an issue that's weighing on me, I have to take a step back and think about ways that I can take care of myself in that time so that I can come back and be stronger and take care of the issue. In terms of keeping things fresh and coming up with new ideas, educating myself. There's a lot of things I don't know, and the more I know, the more ideas I can come up with, and the more change I can hope to make through knowing more. That's all I have for you right now, Vivian, but that's a great question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Layla, for being here.
Thank you all for having me and for having this conversation. I just want to say that I admire you all for having conversations about such big topics and for being willing to listen to what I have to say. I really do appreciate that. So thank you for your time.
If you want to learn more about native ecosystems and how to conserve them, how they are conserved, visit Oli Ecosystems or Olympia Coalition for Ecosystems Preservation and the West Bay Woods on the west side of Olympia.
Welcome to This Week in History. On April 27th, yesterday, South African citizens of all races are allowed to vote in a general election for the first time. The 1994 general election was held 44 years after apartheid was formalized by the government with the passing of the Group Areas Act. On April 28th, today, 2001, Dennis Tito became the first space tourist in history. A Russian rocket transported the Californian billionaire to the International Space Station, ISS. On April 30th, Friday, 1997, at exactly 12:11 p.m., London's iconic Big Ben clock stops ticking. For 54 minutes, the most famous clock in the world fails to keep time. On April 30th, Friday, 1993, 4 years after publishing a proposal for an idea of linked information systems, computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee released the source code for the world's first web browser and editor. Originally called Mesh, the browser that dubbed World Wide Web WWW became the first royalty-free, easy-to-use means of browsing the emerging information network that developed into the internet as we know it today. On May 1st, Saturday, 1925, the world's largest trade union was founded. The All China Federation of Trade Unions has more than 300 million members. And lastly, May 1st, Saturday, 1978, Naomi Yumura becomes the first person to reach the North Pole alone. The Japanese adventurer is also credited with the first solo ascent of Mount McKinley and the first solo rafting of Amazon River. Thank you for watching This Week in History.
We would like to celebrate the last birthdays for the month of April. Happy birthday to Caden Haggerty, Kira Hallworth, Naeem Islam, Emerson Lasley, Devani Wade, and TMMS staff member Nancy Mayer. Happy birthday!
How long have you been working at Marshall?
This is my ninth year at Marshall.
Why did you choose to be a language arts teacher?
Well, growing up, I'm the son of an English teacher. My dad taught and still does. He subs, even though he's retired. He still likes to work in the school and be around students. And he is an English, high school English teacher and a drama teacher. I actually had him for sophomore English when I was in high school because my town had one high school. So I had him for sophomore English and for drama class. And man, my work was like, this is how your work should look. And so I was held to a pretty high standard.
Where is one place you want to travel?
You know, I've always wanted to go back to Vietnam with my dad. He was there in the late 60s during the war, and luckily he got to go back there in a whole different way in early 2000s, and you know, really got to make peace in a lot of ways with his time there in a really, you know, it was war, you know, so in his time there, he was able to give back to the, you know, to the country, to the people. And he and I have always talked about doing, like, you know, Vietnam by train, you know, north to south or south to north.
If you weren't a teacher, what would you be?
You know, as much as I can't see myself doing anything else, I would be teaching in some sort of aspect. Even though I grew up in Nebraska in the middle of the Midwest, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. You know, we used to come out to Washington State and visit my uncles in Portland and Seattle, and just, you know, I fell in love with Puget Sound and the ocean, and really connected with that. And so I guess I would, you know, want to be a marine biologist teaching students of whatever age out in the field, you know, on a beach or in a boat somewhere.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live and why?
Anywhere where I was close to water, close to mountains, close to forests. Oh, wait, that's where I live right now. So I feel really lucky to live here. I decided to, you know, when I got out of the service, to move out here. But if there was another place, I've considered moving up to Alaska. I have friends up there, worked up there for several years, and Kodiak Island in Alaska is just a gorgeous place, a lot like here in a lot of ways. So yeah, water, trees, mountains, and everything that brings.
What is your favorite thing about teaching?
It keeps me young. I'm a kid at heart, and so I get to be with youngsters, it helps me feel young. Even if I don't know who all the musical groups are or whatever, the latest TikTok dance moves or whatever, it keeps me young, and I look forward to it every day.
What was your dream job when you were a kid?
So marine biologist was one of them, but I also for a long time wanted to be a pilot, and I loved jets. When I was a kid, I was always drawing jets or thinking about being either a jet pilot, and then that turned into like commercial pilot. And then one of the other things was to be a commercial diver, because I like scuba diving, and to be able to make that part of your everyday, even though it's work and you're not just swimming around looking at fish. But that was definitely something on my list.
If you could bring anything from your childhood to now, what would it be?
Some of my earliest memories are on the Niobrara River in like the northwestern part of Nebraska. My dad had a canoe business where he would people would pay him, and he would take people down the river. Sometimes it was just a day trip. Sometimes it was overnighters, and we would feed everybody and camp them out. And my mom and some of the other one of the other wife of my dad's partner would drive the cars down so that when people got down there, their cars were there. And so some of my earliest memories were being in a canoe with my dad on the river, looking down in the water and finding old copper mining pans that had surfaced in the sandy bottom, or like brass cartridge shells from Army cavalry troops or whatever from back in the day, and just seeing different wildlife every single day. That is I know it's a big deal in my dad's world, in his life, and it's a very foundational element of me and who I was, and definitely I think the relationship with my dad.
That's all the questions.
Cool. Nice chatting with you today.
Don't forget to sign up for after-school activities and intramural sports. After-school activity sessions will start next Monday, May 3rd. Registration is required to participate. There will be jewelry making, beading, Dungeons & Dragons intro, Magic the Gathering, anime, cooking classes, a whole week dedicated to Harry Potter themed events, crafts, and movies. Plus, drawing, painting, paper mache, origami, Legos, and so much more. Again, registration is required, so go on to our school website to register for our after-school clubs and for the remaining intramural sports sessions. Session 2 for intramural sports also starts on May 3rd. Registration is available on our school website. Transportation is provided each day, so register now for after-school clubs and intramural sports.